Hello and welcome back to the Octave Leap Podcast with your host, David Kahn. I'm coming at you once again from sunny South Africa, where we have landed just a few days ago, and I'm adjusting nicely to the land energy here, the beautiful sunshine, and the chill way of life, which wasn't so much the case in Bali. Bali is a very busy place these days. Anyway, a lot's been going on in my internal world, especially with this whole trifecta system, as more and more information has been coming through me and the creation of this system, which has been going on for a few months and has been tying together really a lot of things that I've been contemplating and working with for the last 20 years on a spiritual path. And it's really converging in a simple, elegant system. It's like I've been picking up breadcrumbs of the divine along the way. And this is just the latest sort of revelation that I've had around this. Ultimately, what I'm looking at creating with Trifecta is a very simple and elegant approach for people to not have to go through, big readings, astrology readings, and human design and gene keys to get information that they might feel like, hey, I've already transcended this. Instead, what I want to look at is what is the direct correlation between cosmic entities such as supermassive black holes, great attractors in the universe, and these sources of energy, of dark matter and dark energy that correlate with our own genetics. As above, so below is the old expression in Hermeticism says. So many people intuit that there's a connection between us. We know physically we're made of stardust, but on a more spiritual level, psychological level, karmic level, there's a lot more ties to what happens out there in the universe at large. And astrologers and human design readers have known this. However, there is something I've come across in the traditional system, the tropical system in the West, that never really sat right. And what I was finding was that people that reach a certain level of consciousness essentially feel like, hey, like what these readings are telling me is like an older version of myself, or maybe a version of myself that was less evolved. And indeed, I've come to realize that a lot of what the tropical matrix or tropical astrology tells us is actually about the false self trying to break free of Maya or the matrix. And really, what people are asking for is, how do I embody my essential self? That's really what we want to know at a deep fundamental level. At a certain point, initially, when we're still kind of getting familiarized with ourselves, it's totally fine to try to figure out, who is this prisoner that I'm caught inside? Who is this human biological instrument that my soul resides in as almost an observer, just watching it go through its mechanical patterns and tendencies that it's sort of intermeshed in the larger global matrix. And I would say that astrology and human design and gene keys are helpful when we look through that lens. However, there's another lens that we can use. And this other lens was something I came across just recently from a friend of mine who lives in Singapore. And he showed me this in about an hour and it blew my mind. And then I did my own, sometimes when we get information and it's at the right time, it sort of leads to an epiphany of revelations and downloads that just sort of come pouring in. And so I got to work applying this and I was just blown away. And if you know me, I also have a technical mind. I run a software company as well, called Resonance, which helps holistic practitioners, build their businesses online. So I like getting into the technical side of things, systems. And so I'm like, well, how can I make a system that automates this process and that basically you just type in your information, your birth information, and you get exactly what you need to hear. So I've been looking at three major aspects that I feel like people should learn about, as this has come up in my work so many times again and again. And the first one is understanding our core wounding, understanding the blockages that continuously come up and get in the way of our best intentions. Because if we don't address those, if we don't harmonize that core wounding, we won't really get anywhere. The other aspect, of course, is our life path, what we're here to do, what our big mission is in the world, why we chose to incarnate. And often there's this veil of forgetfulness when we're born. When we're transiting between lives, we have a little bit of a greater perspective, but that whole birthing process forms an amnesia, and we have to kind of learn things, or remember things, I should say. So, there's a process called self-remembering, a term coined by G.I. Gurdjieff. And self-remembering essentially is the process of remembering I am a soul incarnate in a body at a certain coordinate, time-space coordinate, that's having an experience right now. But I have access to all the other past experiences that have come before this. And if I can make myself conscious, I can increase my footprint and I can actually evolve the beingness, the eternal side of me. And so that's what I'm most interested in. I'm most interested in what will remain after a cataclysmic event. Because it sure won't be our possessions, and it sure won't be our physical body. It will be something else. However, the great process of conscious evolution in the universe also will do whatever it takes to keep conscious servants in play. So when we awaken and we embody this greater potential that resides within us, it is a very, very good insurance policy, because there are, comparably very few of us compared to those that are unconsciously muddling around out there. And so therefore, I've come to realize that, and I think a lot of people get this at a certain point, is that once you know, you know. And why would you choose anything else once you know where we are at in this great game of creation? And so we might not have all the answers, but they're out there. And there is a correlation between what happens up there and what happens in here. And if we can learn things about our unique makeup through that, then we can navigate our path through the labyrinth with much greater ease. And we can find the people we need to find. We can gain the resources that we need, which is the third thing that I like to identify with Trifecta, our sense of natural prosperity. The things that change our relationship with resources and money, because we need resources in the physical plane. We are incarnate here to work directly with the physical plane. And as a result of that, we're not meant to be playing small once we remember who we truly are, and once we start to embody that and take action in that direction. Okay, so I've got a little presentation for you today. And if you're listening to the audio version, I highly recommend that you also tune in with the video version of this as well, because there's going to be things in this presentation. I'm going to do my best to kind of break it down, so whether you're listening to the audio or you're watching, you'll get the message regardless. I'm also going to show you where I'm at with building this calculator. It's not super glamorous right now, but it works. And I've mostly been getting a lot of downloads around the core wounding element. And at a certain time in the near future, I'm going to begin building the elements that will describe one's life path and one's sense of prosperity as well. So this is coming online in the very near future. Okay, time to dive in and time to take a look. So if you can see this, what you're seeing is a diagram, and tropical astrology is basically the false sense self breaking free of Maya. So it's trying to describe the ascension process. Now, the big issue with this is that at a certain point in our evolution, we kind of enter into a no man or no woman's land, where we're like, yeah, but the things that this system's describing no longer apply to me, because they're describing how to break free of the false self. And in many aspects of life, I've broken free of the false self. So we begin to get declining results and revelations when using these systems at a certain point. What True Sidereal is, because True Sidereal is based on the actual placement of planets as we see them in the sky. So it doesn't have the overlay of the planetary imaging software, you could call it, the great quantum computer that distorts our identity and our sense of having a relationship with reality as it is. So I call the true sidereal reality as it is. It's the essential self becoming more embodied. Okay? So this is what I see it describing. Is it useful for everything? No, and it doesn't supersede tropical astrology for everyone. It just basically is a different lens that I have found very potent in this particular way that I'm working. And I'm sure other astrologers will argue with me and they'll say, no, Dave, you're wrong. You're completely bunk with all this. That's fine. I'm going off what I've seen works. And in a very short period of time, I've confirmed that indeed this lens gave myself and several other people that I've run readings for very specific and potent advice. In fact, I just wrote an email. I was with a friend the other day. Him and his wife were chatting, and he was going through a hard time. And so I ran the core wounding element on him, and his wife was just sitting there nodding. She's like, that's exactly the issue you face. And then a couple days later, he sent me a message and said, oh my God, it took me a little bit, but like, yeah, I really get this, and I really get what this download is, and this is the action I'm going to take. I'm going to take some space. I'm going to take a break. And that's exactly what he needed to do to raise the frequency of that core wounding and allow it to become a gift. It's not obsessing about our wounding. It's basically knowing that chief feature that gets in the way, that prevents the natural flow of life force and abundance into our experience of life. Okay. So here now what you see on the inner circle, this is tropical astrology. So the tropical astrology, 0 degrees Aries, it actually happens in the sign of Pisces, the actual sign that we see in the sky. That's because it's linked to where the sun rises on the spring equinox. So all they did in tropical astrology thousands of years ago was said, okay, we're going to start our zodiac at whatever position the sun rises on the spring equinox. Now, there's something called the wobble of the Earth, which is a 26,000 year cycle, which means that it sort of is this one movement, very slow movement, but it causes basically a distortion in where the sun rises versus the actual zodiac. So sidereal is on the outer ring, and it describes the actual placement of the constellations. The inner ring is basically where the tropical zodiac resides, and it's based on assigning 30 degrees of sky space to each zodiac, with the starting goalpost being where the sun rises on the spring equinox. Now, that changes by 1 degree every 72 years. And as a result of that, as time passes, it becomes more and more offset from the actual constellations in the sky. Now, why they did this was that they said that astrology is more about the seasons of the soul. So it correlates with the seasons of the year. And so it's actually decoupled from the actual constellations in the sky. Now, many have gone on to say Western astrology describes the personality, which is rooted in tropical astrology. Eastern, which is rooted in sidereal, describes the soul. So if we want to know more about our essential self, we should actually look to the constellations as they are in the sky. Now, there's another issue here that I'm going to present, and that is the actual ecliptic. This is where the ecliptic is sort of the center line of rotation in the sky, or the highest point of the sky, basically. It goes through each of the constellations, but they're of different sizes. Like you can see here, Aries is very small, Virgo is huge. And so when we assign 30 degrees to each sign, it's kind of a convenient way of breaking things down, but it's not accurate to what's actually happening in the sky. Additionally, the sign of Scorpio can be broken down into 2 signs, which is one is Scorpio, the other one is Ophiuchus. Sorry, I get this one wrong. Ophiuchus. 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 That's what I want to say. Thank goodness. I was going to sound like a bozo there. So anyway, we have different sizes of constellations, and we also have a 13th constellation. So the ancient astrologers basically said, well, we're going to simplify this. We're going to call this whole batch Scorpio, and we're just going to assign 30 degrees to all of them. So here you can see this is the typical zodiac wheel with 30 degrees given to each of these signs along the rim. And the actual true sidereal system is the signs as they are. So you see some constellations like Virgo are much larger, Pisces is much larger, Aries is small, Cancer is small, Scorpio is tiny, and there's this third mysterious one, Ophiuchus. And now Ophiuchus, the interesting part about it is it's said to represent the dark feminine or the wounded feminine aspect within the soul. And funny enough, the galactic center is right here at 0 degrees Ophiuchus. And the galactic center you can think of as a raw source of dark energy. It's just like the generative process. It is sort of the thing holding our whole galaxy together. And we interpret this effect on us as being sort of like a huge rush of cosmic information, raw cosmic information. So it has sort of this feminine component to it, this generative force in the galaxy. And so it makes sense then that Ophiuchus represents sort of this raw, feminine, wild force of creation and in this sort of cosmic scheme. They also say that Ophiuchus is ruled by the asteroid Chiron, so it also has a deeper connection with core wounding. Now, many astrologers do not recognize Ophiuchus, but I feel like it holds a potent key to our evolution. So you can see between these two charts, the chart on the left is what I would be in tropical astrology. The chart on the right is what I am in true sidereal. So you can see everything is shifted by 19 degrees. All of my placements are in different signs. The house system stays more or less the same. I'm using equal houses over here, and I'm using Placidus housing over here, which I'm not going to get into the details of that right now. But the planets basically are in the same position on the chart, but all the constellations have now changed, which changes the interpretation completely. Funny enough, there are still many parallels because of the aspects, because of how they're positioned relative to each other, but there's deeper information that can be gleaned from this that really speaks more for myself to who I actually feel like, especially as I become more and more conscious in my journey. So the effect that this has on the human design gates is pretty huge. We can see on this inner circle, and it's probably pretty tiny on the screen, but like gate 50 is here at the beginning of Libra, and gate 50 basically bridges between Libra and Scorpio in true sidereal. So all of these gates are also shifted by 19 degrees. And as a result of this, what ends up happening is that it completely changes our genetic makeup in human design. So we can become different types. We can have different profiles. Different gates are activated and different channels are activated. Now, I've had some human design readers come to me and say, well, I did my true sidereal human design and it's not accurate. Well, human design is meant to describe the workings of the human biological instrument, our body. So in many ways, I'd say it's still debatable as to what system is more important for human design. For gene keys and astrology, though, we're aiming to understand our transcendental nature. So I have found with Trifecta that human design, I still do both readings. I still do the true sidereal and I still do the tropical, just to see what resonates more for the individual. But for astrology and gene keys, I am now more using the true sidereal. And the little calculator I made, it doesn't really focus too much on human design. It mostly focuses on the gene keys with a little bit of an astrological overlay to give even finer grained resolution, which we're going to take a look at in a minute. I'm going to show you where I'm at with this calculator. Super cool stuff. Okay, so now we're going to look at how true sidereal fares for each system. Like I said, for astrology, it works very well to describe the deeper yearnings and strivings of our essence, because astrology really is a mapping of our soul in human form. And it kind of takes away a lot of the need for complexity in astrology. What I was finding was that astrologers, to give accurate readings, if they weren't relying on their intuition, they were often looking at smaller and more specific aspects, different asteroids, duods, which are like subdivisions of where the house is, which degree a house starts at. And, they had a lot of fancy stuff happening to kind of try to make a chart work. Cool. A lot of astrologers just say, we're going to look at the chart and I'm going to apply my intuition. But then again, there's some human error involved. With true sidereal in astrology, it takes a lot of the guesswork out and it gives you a direct picture of your soul mapping and the yearnings of your essential self. Human design, I'd say it's debatable to use True Sidereal. It has worked for some people. It doesn't work for other readers because human design was intended to describe how to use our body's energy. What's our best sleep cycle and routines and eating habits and environments. So, we do have to take care of the lowers just as much as we have to take care of the higher. One complaint I hear from a lot of people with human design is that it feels too boxy. It feels like it's putting people in a box. Well, human design is meant to describe how our body energy works optimally. So I've still got a little bit more to figure out there and to calibrate with my own readings to know exactly how True Sidereal fits in with human design. However, the friend I was telling you about, he swears by it. Other readers have tried both and they swear by tropical. So like I said, there's some debate still out on the issue. Gene Keys works incredibly well with True Sidereal. When I contemplate my True Sidereal placements, I've just received so many incredible revelations about life in there. And it's basically really just opened me up to so much more understanding about my core wounding and also that for others too. Like I said, I'm just starting with the core wounding and then I'm getting more information, and it's not coming from my mind, it's coming from another source. So that information presents itself when it's needed. And so the core wounding, I've mapped that out using 3 aspects. One is the personality Chiron, the design Mars, and the design moon. Now, why? I've thought about this afterwards. This is just sort of what came through, and I'm like, okay, got it. The Chiron is the wounded healer, but it has a longer span. So it stays in a particular placement in human design or gate or gene keys, sorry, for 8 months. So it's more of a wide generational type of effect. The design Mars stays in a gate for a couple weeks, so it's much more personal, and it describes our vocation. So the imprint of wounding we receive at birth, when we're in the womb, that then becomes the thing that we place our energy on in life in trying to rectify. Finally, the design moon is the fastest moving one, and it switches gates approximately every day. And the design moon really speaks to the way that we feel on a level that we cannot fully control. Okay? So it's sort of the latent or unconscious emotional patterning that we have. And so I've developed a little system here that I'm going to show you where basically we can figure out our True Sidereal. Okay, this is where things get really interesting. So I'm going to show you now what this is. So if we go to this site called Mastering the Zodiac, and I'm just going to pull it up one sec. So the site here called masteringthezodiac.com. And when you go and you click charts and chart calculator, you enter in your birth information and you'll get this exact chart that you saw in my presentation. So this is my True Sidereal astrology chart, masteringthezodiac.com. Okay. And so I'm not going to explain how to interpret this today because I'm just going to show you how to use it for the trifecta calculator. But there is a way to interpret it and get a lot of really cool information out of it. The next one we want to use is a site called Cosmic Human Design. Now, this isn't for the human design reading, but this is to get the True Sidereal placements for the gene keys, which I'm going to show you how to do in a second here. So on this site, which is cosmichumandesign.com, you calculate a free chart and you'll get something that looks pretty rough. It looks like this. What I then do is I take this and I copy these. So I copy the design planet and gates and I paste it into my calculator. Then I copy the personality text and I paste it into my calculator. Now, like I said before, my calculator is not super duper, glamorous, right? Because I'm making this as I go. So I'll have updates later, but it does the job now. So I'm going to show you what I've kind of come up with here. I'm going to show you my own, basically my own reading that I've done for this. So this is my super cool trifecta calculator. So I copied in the design planets. copied in the personality planets. I converted them. So I made this little macro that converts them. And then what I get is I get my own personalized affirmation. So it's reading many different things from my chart. So I have to input right now the house system myself, but it reads the rest of the stuff. And what I get is when I experience chaos, especially in my long-term relationships, I feel limitation in my inner world and home. That's when I place my energy on forgetting in my career and mission. Now, this means a lot to me. This is like, oh my God, like I go off track when there's chaos experienced in the people that are closest to me in my life, my partner, my close associates, my friends, colleagues, family. It makes me feel limited inside. And then that takes away and diminishes my career and mission. And so this is what I experienced massively this year when I had some upheaval with a number of long-term relationships, and I really felt limited, and I veered off, and I ended up with this motorcycle accident because I forgot what my career and mission is. And so when I turn that around and I heal this core wound, I want to experience innovation, especially in my long-term relationships, so I can feel realism. Realism is actually magic lived in my inner world and home, and my energy flows towards mindfulness in my career and mission. So this here is a very powerful way to understand. And these are just keywords. The more detailed information is on this page here, the reading, which gives exact information about what the repressed nature and the reactive nature of each shadow is for the Chiron placement, the design Mars, and the design Moon. So when we take these and we contemplate them and we actively raise the frequency of them, what ends up happening is that we're able to shift through our core wounding, which is our primal patterning, much faster because we're placing our mind. It's like we're placing our focus and attention on that thing that needs to be healed and balanced. And as a result of that, we shift through and we know what rightful action needs to be. And there's no more confusion in our lives. Or at least we move through the confusion and come to clarity very, very quickly. Now, right now, a lot of these descriptions are being pulled from the Gene Keys. So I do have to give Mr. Richard Rudd a huge shout out for coming up with that. And I'm getting there by using the True Sidereal System of human design. So again, there's a couple steps involved, but it comes up with a really nice personalized affirmation and then more detailed information for you. And what I'm doing right now, because the calculator is still in beta mode and it requires some manual tweaking that's a little bit complicated, I'm doing readings for people by donation. So if you want a reading of your trifecta, of your core wounding, to really understand that and really kind of flush it out more than just the affirmation, I'm giving the detailed information that goes with that. You simply need to click the link below. And I have basically, it's by donation. And the reason why I'm doing this by donation is because, I really feel called to offer this to more people. And at the same time, it's not something that I've been working with in this form for years and years. This is the form that I'm working with is brand new, but it draws upon many years of working with these various systems. So at the end of the day, it's great for you because you get a chance to try this out as I'm building it, and it still works. Trust me. Like I've for the people I've done it for, they're like, this is spot on. I just haven't done it for thousands of people yet, but I will one day. And one day it will be a full-fledged automated web interface where you can just enter your information and get the results. So right now I'm doing these manually. And if you want, you just click the link below, register for just give me your birth information basically, or just give me a donation and what you're looking to find, and I will supply you with a video reading. I'll run this process for you and give you a reading. So super cool. I'm really stoked to continue building this Trifecta app. I'm in talks with various developers about how to make this work and how to actually create it so that we can have something that sits on the internet that you can just log into and get this deep personalized information about what you need to know about moving your life forward. Super, super cool. And that's where a lot of my time and energy has been going lately, folks. I've been doing lots of Trifecta readings, which are like one-on-one. I've also been doing a number of these donation-based readings. I have an inbox right now that's just full of people saying, I'm interested. Tell me more. Here's my birth information. So for me, this shows me this is life saying this is where you're meant to be right now. This is what you're meant to be doing. And I hope you got value out of this podcast episode, because it is something that I find very exciting, and it's just at its nascent stage. I feel like in a way, this is my contribution to moving this body of knowledge forward, the body of knowledge around self-awareness, around the handbook for life, as my friend Martin calls it. And that's my daughter yelling in the background. So anyway, if you enjoyed this episode, just give this a like, maybe share it. And maybe you can reach out to me using the link below, and I can provide you with a reading using Trifecta. All right, take care.